As the U.S. bishops prepare to kick off their spring meeting next week, there's been much controversy over the issue of denying communion to pro-abortion politicians. The bishops plan to discuss whether or not to issue a document on the subject. President Joe Biden would certainly be one among many Catholic politicians who could be affected by whatever the bishops decide. My next guest has compiled an extensive report which he shared with bishops that could affect the outcome. Here to discuss his new report and much more, I'm joined by the president of the Catholic League, Bill Donohue. Bill, thanks for being here. I want to begin with this list you've compiled of all the times Joe Biden's policies have departed from Catholic teaching. I'll give the audience a little sample. Now, I'm just picking a few at random here. January 22nd, 2021, Biden issued a statement on the 48th anniversary of Roe v. Wade describing the 1973 U.S. Supreme Court decision as a foundational precedent to which all judicial nominees should commit. Biden called for Roe's codification. February 25th, 2021, the House passed the Equality Act. The act would effectively gut the 1993 Religious Freedom Restoration Act, eviscerating important religious rights. Bill, why did you decide to release this report now and compile it at this moment?
Well, first of all, the bishops are meeting June 16 to 18 to take up this issue and many others. And I've been reading a lot of media reports, particularly from the Catholic media, Catholic leftists in particular, who are critical of the bishops. And they're saying that, listen, Biden is good on immigration, he's good on the environment, he's good on other issues, that you're really picking on him. And he's basically a very good, consistent Catholic. He calls himself a devout Catholic, and that's between him and God. But we make decisions at the Catholic League based on your policy prescriptions and to what extent they mesh with Catholic teachings. Now, if Biden were not Catholic, it wouldn't matter as much to the Catholic League. But there is a perception out there amongst Catholics and certainly non-Catholics, and they matter in this discussion, that you can be a good Catholic and flout Catholic teachings on salient moral issues of our day. Again, the bishops make that decision, but I said to my staff, Biden doesn't depart from the Catholic teachings on a few issues. We're talking about public policy issues. We're not talking about other issues. And I said, why don't we just take a look at it? We were startled ourselves. And I said, look, we're not going to go back when he was a senator. He's been around, about 48 years in public life, just since January the 20th of this year. And we came up with, 32 examples. And we could have put in more, but we just picked out some of the most salient ones. It's really rather startling, from religious liberty to marriage to life. Joe Biden is, without question, the most radical president in the history of America in terms of differing with the Catholic Church's teachings on public policy issues. No one has departed more than Joe Biden.
I've spoken to a number of bishops about this, Bill, and, some of the media say the bishops are, as you said, picking on Joe Biden, hazing him using his faith, weaponizing the faith. And most of those bishops, almost to a man, said, look, if he weren't Catholic, it wouldn't be such a big deal. We wouldn't be raising the alarms the way we are because, and I think they rightfully point this out, Joe Biden is teaching people how to actively live the Catholic faith in the political sphere. And the way he's teaching them departs from the doctrine of the church. So it is their responsibility to correct the record, and it puts the bishops in, let's face it, an uncomfortable spot. I mean, President Biden used to be a supporter of the Hyde Amendment, Bill. Now it's been omitted from his budget proposal. Why do you think that is? And can the bishops hold him accountable on something like that, just on that issue alone?
I think he's followed the train of thought in the Democratic Party. I mean, it's no secret. Everybody knows the Democratic Party has gone markedly left. The AOC wing of the party seems to be the ascendant one. They keep gaining members in that squad contingent. And so we've seen lots of examples where if you want to be elected at the national level, at least, you have to kowtow to the more radical elements. And so people who are left in the center now, they're almost like freaks, like Manchin, Joe Manchin from West Virginia.
Joe Manchin,
so he's no radical, but he's not exactly a super conservative either. I think Biden just knew that if he wanted to become president, he had to go where the money is, and the people funding this do want a more left Democratic Party. The bishops are stuck. I'm very sympathetic with them. By the way, the Catholic League is decidedly agnostic on what the bishops should do. It's not our job as lay people to tell the bishops what they ought to do on whether or not who gets communion or not. That's a delicate issue for the bishops to handle. What I'm trying to do is debunk the mythology that somehow Biden just has a few departures from Catholic teachings. When you are supporting a bill such as the Equality Act, which could actually shut down Catholic hospitals if the Catholic doctors do not perform abortions, that's not a small matter. When you tell surgeons who can perform transgender surgery that you must perform them, independent of your Catholic strictures and your conscience rights, that's not a small matter. You're basically decimating the conscience rights of Catholic doctors and hospitals. And so when we looked at that, along with other religious liberty matters, and the whole idea that somehow we're supposed to accept that my sex was assigned by somebody, this is supposed to be accepted in Catholic medical quarters. No one was ever assigned their sex. Your sex was determined by your father, all right? That's the way biology works. And the people in the hospital record it. They validate it. Now, to ask Catholics to go along with this madness is I think, is obscene.
You mentioned a moment ago that you can't, and the Catholic League won't, tell the bishops what they should do here. But the fact of the matter is that none of us have to tell the bishops what to do. Canon law actually prescribes what the bishops have to do, and they have to protect that sacrament from sacrilege, and they're bound by canon law to forbid that sacrament and to have a conversation with public figures who are erring from that Catholic doctrine and yet approaching the communion rail. So, as I said, I think between canon law and the agenda of Joe Biden, the bishops are between a canon law and a hard place. I get it. But it seems to me they're going to have this conversation on some level. And to have a conversation, I don't understand why that's become such a controversial point going into this bishops' meeting.
Well, as you well know, Ray, and you've reported this very well on your show last week and the week before. I watch you all the time. There are senior members in the Vatican who are, to some extent, micromanaging what goes on in the USCCB and the Bishops' Conference, telling them that your vote has to be unanimous. I mean, that's a procedural matter. But I leave it to the prelates, to the senior members of the Catholic clergy to figure it out. There isn't unanimity. We know that as to what to do. But I'm more concerned in my role as a lay Catholic to get rid of the mystique that is being promoted by other lay Catholics, those on the left, the Biden supporters, who say that the bishops are basically demonizing him. No, the bishops have a duty to be faithful to their own teachings of the Catholic Church and what their conference decides. But we cannot pretend that Joe Biden hasn't departed from senior Catholic teachings in grave ways, in extremist ways, in ways that we've never seen before. Again, we fight anti-Catholicism, and some of the stuff that Biden is promoting is actually promoted by anti-Catholics. I'm not saying he himself is anti-Catholic, but he's feeding into it. That's how radical the man has become.
Well, as one of the bishops told me in the past week, I won't say who, he said, look, we have to speak out because we respect and care for the soul of a fellow Catholic, mainly the president in this case. So it's not just having a public show, it's putting an individual Catholic on notice that his soul is imperiled because of his public actions and publicly announced agenda. That's an important role, and good on the bishops for at least engaging the moment and engaging the conversation. Now, many U.S. bishops have been critical of Biden's policies, Bill. We've talked about that for weeks. This week, you released a piece pointing out that critics of the U.S. bishops are wrong to accuse them of political partisanship. Now, at times, individual bishops do seem to be partisan. Why did you decide to release this piece saying, no, the bishops are not partisans?
Well, you have left-wing Catholics over at the National Catholic Reporter, John Carr at Georgetown. They're promoting this idea that the bishops are out there just to get Biden. It's all nonsense. The bishops agree and the bishops disagree with presidents based on the policies that the president is promoting and their allegiance to Catholic teachings. So we took a look at all the times that the bishops, or not all the times, but many of the times that the bishops said positive things about President Obama, They're saying positive things on occasions about President Biden, and they've said negative things about President Trump. Because some of these people, some of the lunatics over at the National Catholic Reporter are saying that the bishops actually are worshiping Donald Trump and not Jesus Christ. That's just how far the invective has gone. We're dealing here, the average person who's in the pews doesn't realize the sense of delirium that exists among some left-wing Catholics. Their hatred for the Catholic Church as it it reminds me of, just as you see in the left in general, of the hatred of America, which we see every single day coming from left quarters. I mean, they could have a whole show put to that. And so what we're trying to do at the Catholic League is to bring some balance to this whole thing. The bishops were for and against Trump. They were for and against Obama. They are for and against Biden, depending on the policy, depending on the issue,
Right.
and the way it meshes with any degree of coherence with Catholic teachings. They're not in the pocket of anybody.
Yeah. Well, and again, I can point out, and you pointed out in your report, there are issues where the bishops have supported Democrats and not Republicans. For instance, on immigration, the bishops put out a statement when Trump was president. It read like this: "We have grave concerns about the Trump administration's interim final rule issued on July 16th that greatly limits U.S. asylum eligibility at the border." That was Bishop Joe Vasquez in August of 2019. After Biden took office, the bishops wrote, "Wednesday's actions by the Biden administration are an important first step toward ensuring that immigration enforcement in our country is balanced and humane. Too many people have experienced harsh and heavy-handed enforcement at the U.S.-Mexico border and within the U.S. interior, causing families to be needlessly torn apart," and it goes on. Bill, the real question here is, unlike the life issues, this immigration policy is a prudential judgment. Does it muddy the water to elevate these issues, like immigration? I mean, people can be good Catholics and disagree on immigration policy, but there is no prudential judgment on abortion or these life issues. It's always wrong to take an innocent human life.
I think that's important to distinguish, and certainly America Magazine, which has done some fine work, the Jesuit publication, unfortunately ran an article just recently saying that we should get rid of the idea that abortion is the preeminent right. Well, if the right to be born is not the foundational right, what in the world would it be? And it's not just America, it's coming from a lot of different Catholic, liberal, and left sources. They've never really been in the pro-life camp, let's face it. If you believe in the right to life, that doesn't end your interest in life. I've worked with a lot of people who've worked with the poor, and guess who they are? They tend to be of a more conservative bent, who tend to be pro-life. I know what the left wants. They want the government to take care of the poor. I believe in the Mother Teresa way, which means each individual has an individual obligation to help and reach out to the poor. So I'm sick and tired of hearing this nonsense that pro-life people don't care about the poor, they don't care about the environment. No, they may put abortion first for the obvious reason. If you don't have the right to life, then all of the rights make no sense. But that's not the end of our interest. And I just wish we could just come to an agreement in this country. And unfortunately, you even have some bishops who are doing that. Now, everyone is free to agree and disagree with any individual bishop. What I object to is bishop bashing, the collectivity, smashing the USCCB. You got a good man at the top in Archbishop Jose Gomez, the Archbishop of Los Angeles. He's trying to do the best in a very difficult situation. He doesn't need to be treated this way by the left.
The bishops are going to be deciding whether to issue that document, as we've talked about, on the worthiness of receiving Holy Communion. Some bishops have argued that as a political figure who promotes abortion, President Biden should not be allowed to receive the Eucharist. Others are saying you can't weaponize the Eucharist this way. Where do you think that debate at the USCCB is going to go next week?
I think we'll probably wind up where we are right now, which is to say, outside of a statement of concern, it'll be up to individual priests and bishops. I don't see unanimity. I don't see some one size fits all. After all, there is a lot more autonomy, Episcopal autonomy, than most Catholics even believe, never mind non-Catholics. I think that's probably where it'll go. And obviously, they're scouting, aren't they? Every time President Biden goes to church, he always goes to Delaware. He's home there every weekend. They'll make sure that he goes to a priest who will accede with his wishes.
I want to move on to another topic. Late last month, the Illinois General Assembly approved a radical sex education bill calling for state sex education curriculum in grades K through 12 to be, quote, culturally competent and medically accurate. Now, you wrote about what's in this bill. I want to go over some of it for the audience. Here's a quote. By the end of the second grade, students will be expected to list medically accurate names for body parts, including the genitals. They will also define gender, gender identity, and gender role stereotypes. Bodily autonomy will also be stressed, as well as knowledge about different family forms, including cohabitating and same-gender variants. By the end of the fifth grade, students will be expected to distinguish between sex assigned at birth and gender identity and explain how they may or may not differ. The bill is now before Governor J.B. Pritzker. What do you expect is going to happen here?
Well, he supported a transgender bill 2 years ago, but this is most radical assault, and I've been writing about this for many, many years. They're considering it in New York and in other states as well. This is provided by, this whole operation is sponsored by SICUS, a very radical group that came out of the Kinsey era, who's one of the great architects was supporter of child molestation. I have all the evidence for this. I've written about it many, many years ago. This is a form of child abuse. We're not talking about sex education as it's conventionally understood. We're talking here about sex engineering, which is entirely different. When you start telling kids that when you graduate from high school, you have to be an advocate, that's their words, you have to be an advocate for the LGBTQ, ABCD, IFG agenda, that really tells me something. This is all politics. And what they're doing here, they're selling the idea that minors can be sexually transitioned. That, people, is in fact child abuse. Any minor who is being treated by an adult with puberty blockers and then for sex reassignment surgery, that should be against the law. It is a form of child abuse, and I think most Americans would agree with it. And yet we're going to promote this in the schools, and they always start at kindergarten, don't they? They would go to preschool if they could. They'd like to take the kids away from the parents, going back to Plato's age, that the kids belong to all of us. I've seen too much of this. They want to crush homeschooling. The same people are behind this. But this curriculum is not about the birds and the bees, okay? Anybody who believes that is living in some other land. I've read the curriculum. I wrote this statement about it. This is the most extremist piece of legislation. If the American people actually got a chance to read it, they would be reaching for the vomit bag. And yet you have the Illinois state legislature, which passed this bill on the Friday of Memorial Day weekend. Isn't that cute? And now the governor's sitting there. And I don't want to be told that we're prudes. Anybody knows Bill Donohue knows I am no prude. People should have a nice, good time, but exercise prudence and exercise some restraint. This sex engineering has got to stop in this country, and the whole transgender movement is madness on stilts.
Bill, the legislation does provide for an opt-out for parents to remove children from the mandates in this bill. However, teachers who have moral objections to the teaching requirements don't seem to have an opt-out. Your thoughts, quickly.
Yeah. Why would anybody want to even give that opt-out? They don't have opt-out when it comes to prayer in the schools, right? Everybody's equal. Nobody's allowed to pray. But now we're going to do this to kids? Like I say, these practices are dangerous. It's not a matter of, well, you disagree with Catholic teachings. That's okay with Biden. I'm talking about what they're recommending is pernicious. It's dangerous to the health of young people. And we're not talking about adults. If an adult can make his or her own mind. When you start in with the kindergartners, and when you're telling kids in the 10th grade, rather the 5th grade, who are 10 years of age, I used to teach elementary school. I know the age of these kids. And you're teaching them that you have to be involved in gender, identify whether you were assigned to sex or what. No one is ever assigned to sex, as I said. You are what you are. It's not like as if somebody wrote it down. They don't have gender assignment parties, do they, for people? I mean, when the woman looks at the sonogram, she knows she's having a boy or a girl. Nobody had to assign it. You're either a boy or a girl. The idea that you could be a third sex or a fourth sex, there are 59 sexes in some places. These people belong in the asylum. This is, and we should not allow this to even be a normal conversation. If people in senior positions of authority, secular or religious, don't condemn this, then they are part of the problem.
There is an ad running on some TV networks, Bill, that I want to get to. It was produced by New York-based Lacuna Ventures, LLC. It asks victims of sexual abuse committed by a priest or other Catholic authorities to do this.
Attention. This message is for the survivors of abuse by the Catholic Church. New York, New Jersey, and California have extended the window to file a claim for victims of childhood sexual abuse. It doesn't matter how long ago it happened.
If you or someone you love were a victim of sexual abuse by a priest, any employee, or other Catholic Church official, now is the time to hold these abusers accountable.
It stresses that in those states, time's running out to file a complaint. Bill, what's going on here, and what group or company is putting this ad out?
Well, we had our people jam the lines, and some of the people who responded said that it is Jeffrey Anderson, the guy out of Minnesota, the anti-Catholic, who's been suing the church. He's made tens of millions of dollars off of that. All I can tell you is this. If somebody ran an ad and said, if you've been a victim of crime by an African American, please call us and we'll give you relief, you'd know that that person was a racist, and they wouldn't run it on TV. But they've run it on TV, on big name stations on TV. Look, I have a book coming out by Ignatius Press sometime in the fall about the clergy sexual abuse scandal. I know this subject very, very well. And we don't own this problem. And in fact, with us, it's long over. So where is the ad about the minister, the rabbi, the imam, the psychiatrist, the psychologist, the school counselor, the guidance counselor, the camp counselor? What about the people who are in Hollywood, in the studios, in the media, doctors, lawyers, nurses? One could go down the line. They're never engaged in sexual abuse of minors? I know better. What about public school teachers? They're right at the top of the list. But
well,
you
Bill,
see, they just want to go after us for the money.
Yeah, did these state legislatures only open the window to abuse committed by the people representing the Catholic Church, or is it all sexual abuse? The window of liability here has been reopened.
In New York and Pennsylvania and in California are the concerns right now. And after fighting this for about 15 years, the Catholic League actually succeeded in getting the legislature in New York to open it up to everybody. However, in practice, they're going after the Catholic Church. Why? Because the public schools have too much immunity. They have too many protections. The teachers' unions own the whole situation. As a matter of fact, let me tell you this: a deacon, his name is Deacon Joe. I don't know the man's last name. I have the file back at the office. He contacted us because he called up the 800 number that we put up on our website, and we send it out to people. He called up the firm, the 800 number, about the anti-Catholic ad, just cherry-picking a priest. And the woman told him, she said, we're doing this because the Catholic Church has a lot of money and they pay out. That's exactly what she told him. This is what they do. Look, you know who the biggest abusers of minors are in the United States? Let me tell you, I know this subject is better than anybody. It's stepfathers. It's live-in boyfriends. Now, are any of them going to be sued? No. Why? Because there's no money there. And with the public schools, it takes forever to get a hold of their records and whatnot. They have an ideological and a monetary interest in going after the Catholic Church. And like I say, our problem was 50 years ago. Almost every bad priest who ever was involved in this, almost all of them, are either dead or they're out of ministry. This is a witch hunt, as I've been saying for a long time, and I've got the sociological data to prove it. But this ad, this cherry-picking ad, religious profiling, Catholic profiling, you wouldn't, like I say, have an ad out there saying if you've been a victim of a block, we'll represent you. That would be racist. Where is the outrage amongst Catholics, and in fact matter, the Episcopate on something like this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, look, if you're going to open the statute of limitations here up on a crime, particularly a crime as grievous as this, it should be opened across the culture, not for just one group of abusers. All these abusers should be held accountable, and frankly, they all should be under the jail when it's over. Bill, thank you for that. We will stay in touch. You can find Bill Donohue's extensive report on President Biden's policy departures from Catholic teaching at catholicleague.org. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you so much.